Alright, this is kind of like a creator's commentary of my documentary, Hollywood Insiders, full disclosure. And a little bit about myself. I'm pretty much just a computer nerd who became 9/11 aware in early 2006. And before that time, I thought, the deepest truths were um, scientific, it had to do with the connection between classical mechanics and quantum mechanics and things like that. And I didn't really think anything spiritual was going on at all. But when I found out about 9/11 through documentaries like Loose Change and a couple others, it hit me hard. And it's not just because the CIA or whoever would be willing to kill so many of us just for their own interests and to further their own plans and agendas, but more than that, it required the compliance of CNN, Fox News, the newspaper. I mean, as soon as I found out about 9/11, it became evident how big this had to be because of how many entities were keeping the truth from me. The History Channel, Discovery Channel, PBS. I mean, everybody was playing ball with this story, and the story itself is a rather sloppy crime. So you would have to be willingly playing ball with it because the crime is so sloppy. So I became 9/11 aware. I started tumbling, and soon enough, I'm talking about something else other than Republicans and Democrats. That's for sure. With full disclosure, Hollywood Insiders, I basically just wanted to keep it brief. I was aiming for brevity, pretty much. I didn't want to bore you, and there was a lot of stuff that I willingly took out. I didn't think it was a strong enough case, or I didn't really think that it was worth the filler. I really tried to keep it short and make sure that I wasn't wasting a second. For the most part, the documentary came out as I envisioned, minus a couple problems with the audio. There were the noise reduction program that I used messed with my S's at the back of the words, so it was kind of bad how I had to set up my audio studio here in order to get a good sound and low noise. So, but other than that, it came out like I envisioned. And the point of it was to allow others to analyze for themselves, and not so much just showing you a bunch of pictures of pyramids and all-seeing eyes. And I mean, okay, so they put it in movies, but the next question after that is, what does it all mean? I mean, why? Well, the symbols are done for characters. They're done to give the insiders a reference point to who's who. And so I wanted to make a documentary that helped others kind of analyze these stories for themselves and know what to look for. And that's pretty much it. My first documentary was Star Wars Unveiled. What makes the light? It's still viewable in a couple places. It was poorly done. The audio was poorly done. Everything about it was pretty much poor. The the premise was that the man who would be king was rooted in the Book of Enoch and the Bible, and that Star Wars had a connection to the man who would be king, and that it's the same exact character, and that Vader was Jesus, and that's pretty much the premise of the video. My second video was What Makes the Light, Hollywood Insiders, where I start taking in even more stories. I covered The Matrix, Harry Potter, and some of those same ones that you saw in Full Disclosure. But it was needlessly long, just poorly done. Once again, I don't think I really expressed myself and what I really wanted to say. I wouldn't bother watching any of them. The third one was Fallen Angels, and this was a little bit better production. It was pretty much the first 20 minutes of Full Disclosure expanded to a whole documentary, so it was needlessly long. It goes over all the little details and all the little scriptural evidence, but that I decided to skip in Full Disclosure because it's just boring, frankly. The fourth one was Dark Stars, and it tried to cover synchronicities, predictive programming, and how they're exerting themselves, because we always hear about demons exerting themselves on humans, and putting 666 and subliminals, and I mean, who's doing all this, and how do they manifest themselves through our hands? And so that's something that I tried to cover, discussing demons and muses, and how singers and songwriters get a lot of their, and storytellers, in this case, get a lot of their stories from, is through muses and demons. And the fifth one was Revelations. And you've pretty much seen all of the material that was in Revelations in full disclosure, so there's no need to really look at that one either. It's pretty much just Batman, Watchmen, the Men in Black segments, and you've pretty much seen it. And then this one, full disclosure, I pretty much just tried to keep to the facts and not waste a moment, not waste a single second, just from topic to topic, and I tried to make it all a coherent story. So there it is. I started stumbling across stuff like Star Wars when I opened up my mind to new religions. Primarily, in this case, it would be Islam. I mean, I'm not a Muslim or anything, but I don't think they're entirely wrong. They still have something to be learned from them. And one of the things was the hairy beast who can't, you can't tell his front from his back. And I remember hearing that, and then I remember seeing the segment about Jordan Maxwell saying that the Freemasons actually believe in Yoda, and I'm thinking, maybe Star Wars is just one of those stories that's loaded with real characters. And so I said, well, if that's true, then, if Chewbacca's Jasasa, then that means that Han Solo, his buddy, is the Antichrist. But I had no real reference point, except for the fact that he was mistaken for a god. However, I had also come to the same conclusion regarding, who Danny and the man who would be king was, who was the Antichrist. And so I assumed, well, these two characters should have something in common if they're indeed the same character, and they are. And they do have something in common, a lot of things in common, Han Solo and Danny from the man who would be king. So I had my first reference point, like a connecting binding element there, and I already had the Jasasa. So Islam kind of won a bit of credibility when it was backed up by Star Wars and a lot of other things that I've already gotten to, and we'll get to later. And one of the reasons that I don't discount anybody's retelling of any story, whether it's a religious or Islam or Greek or Egyptian mythology, I don't really discount them because I'm fully aware that we're living under an altered state of history. The history that we know is completely false. Christopher Columbus discovers America. World War II just popped out of nowhere. It had nothing to do with bankers or nothing like that. It had nothing to do with the UN at all or setting that up. No, So the History Channel and the history books and your history professors and everybody's just telling you this completely bogus story and having you memorize it and regurgitate it. And you have those maps. If anybody's ever read Fingerprints of the Gods, you have maps that were longitudinally and latitudinally correct, despite the fact that such things shouldn't have been back then. You got the 1500s, and then you got a map that's accurate and knows what the Antarctica looks like below the ice caps. So we're living in an altered history. Apparently there was a civilization on Earth before, completely wiped out, and now we're just rebuilding, coming back again, and we think that we're all doing this for the first time, but there really was an advanced civilization, or some kind of advanced civilization on Earth before us. And so, you can't really discredit anybody because nobody's going to have it completely right and nobody's going to be completely wrong. And all the religions seem to be telling the same story anyways. So the harmony, or should I say the disharmony, is really not there. In that, like you've got in the Genesis story of pretty much everybody's traditions, you have a flood and these beings that came from the stars and started making mutants with themselves and mixing their genetics with the genetics of others and controlling humanity and just making all these genetically modified beings, and you just hear the story over and over again.